Not the Footy Show.
They got one tackle. They've got one shot. Keary with a kick. It's a one-on-one contest. Kotrick's got it. The Roosters are gone. The Raiders are through to play the Storm.
He knew if he left it for Reynolds to go and get it, he'd be waiting for quite some time. Moses puts a couple of grubbers in before Cook picks it up, and then he sprints through. Damien sprints through, down the right side, steps again, and Cookie goes in for another try.
He's a superstar. He's an absolute superstar.
G'day everyone, welcome to episode 223 of Not The Footy Show. I'm Warrick Nicolson, and I've got two co-hosts this evening, this afternoon, whatever it is. One, you cannot even see his face on TV anymore. He's gone all Oral-B on us, and that's Mr. Roberto Cocksmith. Roberto, how are we?
G'day, mate. How you doing?
Fantastic. And the other man he's north of the border, but he's also been camped outside the Staples Centre for the last couple of days, I believe. And that's Mr. Matthew Duncan, the closet Laker fan, who's finally out there and saying everybody LeBron James is better than MJ. Is that what you've been saying for the last 2 days, mate?
No. It's been a stressful couple of weeks getting his going all the way. Took time off work to follow the run. So took my holidays, took the punt, and it's all paid off. It's been a tough 10 years or so for a battling franchise like the Lakers.
It's been a lot longer for me as a Raiders fan. I got asked the question by my nephew's dad the other day. Who's the longest premiership drought going around? It was delightful to be able to say Parramatta as the actual answer. I'm not going to lie about that since '86, but I think Canberra next with 994. Who's next, lads? Do you have any idea who would be the third most or biggest gap between premierships?
The Crushers.
Poor old Crushers.
When did
the Reds.
When did the Warriors come in?
So they came in '95. So they're next technically, but they haven't actually won.
They don't have do you have to win one to have a
I would
drought?
have thought you'd need to have won one to have a drought. I think next would be. That's a good question. So if you're listening out there and you knew the answer, congratulations to you. Brisbane 2006 is a long time as well, though, Matthew. So to get a Lakers victory is pretty good for you. We're at prelim finals week now, lads. Arguably the most interesting week of the finals, I reckon. You've definitely cleared out the duds in the first week of the semis, and that was Newcastle and Cronulla. Then you've got rid of two pretty good sides who ultimately weren't good enough in the semi-final stage, and that's the Roosters, I'm still stunned, and Parramatta, not so stunned. We're left with four teams, lads. Melbourne, Canberra Friday night, and then on Saturday night, the Bunnies will take on the minor premiers Penrith. What's the gut feel right now? The four teams left, who's number one on your list for the title?
I'll go. I think the winner of the premiership will come out of the Canberra Storm game. Whoever that is, that's your winner. Yeah, I think the other two will be making up the numbers. I've got them clear on top, Storm and Raiders.
Roberto?
I think it's going to be a Storm Penrith grand final, but I'm not sure. I think Storm, given they're the number one contender for me, just because they've been there so often recently, and they're just hard to beat in finals and when the games really matter, and especially when Commander in Chief is there, Mr. Smith. I think I've got them slightly ahead of Penrith at the moment.
Okay. Right now, I'm going to respect Penrith and what they've done. My concern with them remains if they get to the decider and they're behind on the scoreboard, how do they react to that? Because they've been a very much play from in front team, which you are when you win 19 of 20 games. That's just the reality. And it's just how they deal with that pressure in a big game, whether it's this week against South or in the GF.
Well, they handled it pretty good last week, mate.
They did. They did, and then they've had
Roosters.
another week off. Boys, in the old system, the top five, I thought when the minor premier got that week off, that was a good thing. And then they got another week off. And then you had that situation where the Minor Premier potentially plays one game in a month before the GF. Is that a bigger disadvantage than the current setup where if you win your first top 4 game and then you get a week off, then you go to the prelim final? What's the bigger disadvantage you reckon as a team? The current top 8 system where you get a week off, or the old top 5 Minor Premier?
I think.
Go, mate. Go. Sorry, mate. I waited then. I was just waiting for you, mate.
Lovely.
I think this year, I think any week off is a good thing. Only because they've played a lot of football in a condensed amount of time. I think it's beneficial now rather than the way it was before. Only playing, one game of football in 3 or 4 weeks probably isn't all that great unless you've got a lot of niggling injuries. So,
yeah.
But generally, I think it's better now. Sorry, Matty, go for it.
Similar sentiment. I think for a team like Penrith, who's got the momentum at the moment, I think playing every week is what they want to do. They're a young team. They've got the momentum. A team like the Storm, I think they would relish weeks off when you got a bloke like Cameron Smith and he can have that extra rest, and they've just got that experience. So I think it comes down to the individual sides.
Yeah, it's funny because watching the semi-finals, you definitely feel like there's a massive amount of momentum behind the Raiders and the Bunnies.
Yeah,
because of the way they both play on the weekend. And it's funny, like you sit there and you go, there's no doubt the 2 best teams during the regular season were Melbourne and Penrith, but now they've been cooling their heels for a while, and Melbourne definitely rested all their players in round 20, and then they've played a semi, and then they've had another rest. Ironically enough, Canberra did the same thing in round 20 as well, but Penrith didn't rest a lot of players in round 20. And I've been very open about the fact they wanted to keep playing all their stars throughout the season. We will get your tips for the prelims coming up shortly, but I wanted to open the show just with, where we felt the dice had been rolled or whatever at the moment. I'm still thinking Penrith up top. You were Melbourne, weren't you, Matty? Basically.
Melbourne. Yep.
And Rob, you were still on the Penrith bandwagon.
Oh, look, I like Penrith, but I just feel that now we're at the business end. I feel Melbourne are just a millimetre or 2 in front as far as who I think might win the grand final. Not that I want them to, but I just think that, I think they might be just a bit edgy in front.
All right, we'll get into the prelims in a bit more depth and obviously recap the semi-finals from last weekend here on episode 223 of Not The Footy Show.
Not The Footy Show.
Have you seen Wayne yet?
Yeah, I gave him a cuddle. It was good.
He loved it?
Yeah, he did.
Thanks for your time. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, boys, it is time to recap the demise of 2 very good football teams. One that had won a pair of premierships back-to-back and couldn't quite make it a three-peat in the Roosters, and the other one in Parramatta, who, Roberta, you basically forewarned could be going out in straight sets again, and they have, and you basically said in the last podcast, how much pressure does that put on Brad Arthur? So we will dissect both of them in the way that we recap the 2 matches. On Friday night, Canberra 22-18 over Melbourne, and Parramatta got 24 points again, blew another double-digit lead, got done by the Bunnies. I think it was 38-24. Let's start with Parramatta, boys. What do you do if you're Brad Arthur? How do you admit that things didn't work again this year and try something else next year, or what do you do?
Yeah, I think you have to admit that, mate. There's certain things that aren't working there. I've been a bit of a critic of Mitchell Moses for a while, but he's not their chief playmaker where he should be. He's on playmakers' money. He wears a 7 on his back. He just doesn't seem to be the man in the house, so to speak. And there's other issues there as well. Look, Parramatta seem to be dry of ideas when it really matters. They play pretty much well. You can read how they're playing. They're pretty one-dimensional, and I think it gets them through the season all right. But when you get to the end of the season, there's nothing left in the tank. And I'm talking about ideas, not so much gas. I think he's going to be under immense pressure, Coach Arthur, to keep his job. I know they've just kind of recently re-signed him and put him on an extended thing, but I don't think that matters, mate. I think the proof is in the pudding, and what we've seen out of Parramatta, especially in the last 4 or 5 weeks of the competition, is really they're just on max revs the whole time, and they just weren't getting anywhere. So yeah, that's what I think.
We're probably skipping a couple of steps here, but who would be the ideal coach to take a Parramatta side to that next step?
That's a very good question.
Yeah, well, you mean available coaches, or who would be the next kind of coach?
Well, I guess both really. Like if obviously Robinson and Bellamy are your top 2 picks, but they're cards. Who's next?
I think personally, I don't think Arthur's lost the dressing room or anything. I don't think it's that bad. It's not
exactly where you're at. You've got that coach that can get them to the finals every year, but they're just that you need someone to take them to the next level. Yeah.
They need that, and you just mentioned the 2 that would be ideal. You need that that coach that has another gear, that rarely uses that top gear for the year. They can get through, but it's like Arthur. I don't know, because I don't know the man, but it's like he doesn't have any other ideas to take them up and over the top of teams. They seem to be playing at their max all year, and there's nothing left in the tank. Someone like Bellyache, he ain't going there. He'll be in Brisbane next year, mate. He'll be in Queensland anyway, or maybe the year after. He'll be directing from somewhere in Queensland where it's warm. I don't think Bennett would be going there. I think they had a pretty darn good coach a few years ago, but he did something wrong. And Daniel Anderson, he was a coach that could coach a bit. I think he's actually available to coach.
He's involved in the North setup. When I was running past North Sydney over the other day, he got out of his car. Those moments where you look at someone and you go, "I know who you are," and they look at you like, "I know that you know who that I am, someone that you know." I just get running. But yeah.
Joe Taylor at Coles at Noosa one day, so I had a similar experience with Joe Beth.
Joe Beth Taylor, wow! Oh, blast from the past. That's winning the podcast so far, young Matthew. Parramatta's game plan is all about possession and running through their big guys in the middle, and they just play off that. So if they don't get a possession run, then Gutho is not as effective. He played pretty well the other night, but ultimately...
First half was good.
I'll tell you, that mistake on the kick is just gigantic. I mean, that said, Tedesco missed the kick from Williams as well. It happens. But yeah, Moses, look, there was a thing put up by the Telegraph, and I called it out on Twitter the other day, and I'm just going to bring it up for you guys. This is, to me, what is massively wrong with, everything in the way that rugby league is reported at the moment. This is the tweet from the Telegraph Sport on October the 11th. Mitchell Moses is the NRL's most naturally gifted halfback, period. But he will never be rated with the best playmakers until he fixes these problems. I have so much that I dislike about this tweet. But boys, which sentence...
Who wrote it?
I don't know. I didn't click the link because I have no interest in boosting the numbers in regards to that. It feels like a staff writer. It may have been something said on, I don't know, one of the Fox shows or something afterwards. But boys, which sentence rubs you the wrong way the worst? Mitchell Moses is the NRL's most naturally gifted halfback, or
that one.
But he will never be rated with the best playmakers until he fixes these problems. That's the one that bugs me more than anything. I can deal with the pretend comment about he's natural gifted, but it's the bloke sitting like we are on our couches going, or lady going, "Oh, if he fixes these things, he'll be one of the greatest ever." Like, who? What? That stuff just it does my head in.
Yeah, I don't think he's the most naturally gifted half in the comp, and I don't think he'll ever be as good as the best in the comp. That's just what I feel. I don't think he's got the physical size to be the best in the comp. I don't think he's got the strength to be the best in the comp. He's definitely got confidence, but it's a little bit ill-founded confidence as far as I'm concerned. There's moments in games where he does things that are, I've told you this a couple of years ago, there's a video doing the rounds on YouTube from a couple of years ago. He threw one of the sweetest inside balls I've ever seen in my life. there's little flashes of brilliance, but I don't think that it's, you know, I've other than their debut game at the new Bankwest Stadium, I don't think I've ever seen him put together an 80-minute performance. I think he thinks he's better than he actually is. And that's always a problem. It's like when you speak to someone who thinks they're the smartest bloke in the room everywhere they go. They're generally not, and they generally can't be taught much because they think they know everything. Yeah. So, you know, and I'm not trying to beat the guy up. You know, better footballer than I ever was and or ever could be. But
it's still time, Rob.
It's still time. You're on the stage. You're on the stage with the big boys, you know. And if you're going to say that he could be as good as Cleary or Cherry Evans or recently retired Cronk or guys in that category, I don't think so. Not going to happen.
Matty?
You know?
Yeah, I agree. It just strikes me. Halfback is one of those positions where there's a huge leap. You've kind of got your run of the mill that can steal a game, maybe 4 or 5 games throughout a season, and they get some big headlines. But when it comes to the business end of the season, they're not going to win you those games. And I think he falls into that category. And we've seen, and that's no slur. We've seen hundreds of them in just my last 30 years. But yeah, he's a fair bit off that next shelf. And I don't know if you can. Sometimes you either have it or you don't. It doesn't matter if you do these things, you'll become it. I think some players have it and some players never will.
Yeah, there's a moment. Yeah. I just actually, while I was waiting to do the podcast, lads, they had the replay of the South's Parramatta game on, and right at the end of the game's lost. There's not, like, Parramatta can't win it. But the Damien Cook try. Now, if you recall, it was a little grubber for himself, 30 or 40 metres out from his own line by Moses, and he gets through, and there's a bit of a challenge in the ball with Cody Walker, and the ref's there, and Moses basically takes himself out on the ref. And the ball pops up, and Cook picks it up at halfway. And these are the things that I look for, that if I'm going to go, whether I believe you've got it or not, from your competitive standpoint, Moses, as he's falling, is already remonstrating to the ref like, "Who took me out? Penalty, penalty, penalty." And the ball bounces up about 5 yards from him, and Cook picks it up and starts running in that direction. And Mitchell Moses has turned around to the ref going like this. He's completely given up on the live play because he wants the penalty. If you recall, Damien Cook then runs around the outside, beats Sean Lane, beats Takarangi, goes up the outside, steps back inside Gutherson and scores. Mitchell Moses is back near 40-metre line, still lamenting that he didn't get a penalty. Now, admittedly, the game was out of mathematical reach at that stage, but they're the kind of players that I go, I don't care how much talent you got. You've got to track down that play, because ultimately it's your kick that created the turnover anyway. And it's stuff like that I don't like about players, not just Mitchell Moses, but it's like, then you got, I mean, Gutho obviously had a bit of a shocker at that stage to let the try in, but he's the one that's racing across. Dylan Brown is on one leg, and you can see he's hobbling into the defensive line when Cook picks the ball up, and then he just goes into a sprint to try and catch him. Can't catch him, but he doesn't give up on the play. I don't know, but they're the things. I don't care how much talent you got, and I know Joey and the like often talk about it. It's that competitive nature, that's that will to win that ultimately will make a big difference in games like that. So that's where Mitchell Moses is at. Parramatta's season, lads. Is it really just the first 8 rounds of hype / magnificence, and then a bit of nothingness after that? That's how it feels for me.
I feel like it was a bit like that. Although I think it was longer. I think it was more than 8 rounds. You know, I saw them lose some games they shouldn't have lost, but I think they're pretty consistent. What did they finish? Was it 3rd, 4th?
They were 3rd.
Okay, I mean, to finish 3rd, you've got to be pretty consistent. It's not just 8 rounds, but I just feel that they don't have a shift. They don't have a dynamic game plan. They tend to play the same game every week. And they don't have the players in the correct positions. I mean, Reid Marnie is a shining light, but he's not gonna bring something to the game like a half can that'll spark, an attacking raid or anything like that. You know, he'll do some good stuff out of dummy half, and I think he's a future, leader of that team.
Interestingly, just on Marnie quickly, he got replaced with 13 minutes to go. Didn't see the field.
Yeah, that was a bit of a weird rein to pull, wasn't it? There was a couple of weird coaching things, but I'm not sure why he was changed. But yeah, look, I don't think I don't know about what you guys, but I don't think that they have the cattle in those creative positions to go the next step at this point in time. And I think Dylan Brown could be one of those guys, but he seems to have, he's a young guy and he's been injured a fair bit.
Yeah,
in the last.
He's been on one leg since he came back.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Matty?
In regards to Para season, or
just good, bad, indifferent.
Look, it's looking at it from a Broncos fan. It was a great season, really, when you look at it from where I'm looking at the moment. But sometimes I know that these seasons are more frustrating than, honestly, the type of year that the Broncos had, where you put yourself in a position to go all the way, then to go out and how you did. Like, I look back on some of those Broncos years where we had similar years, and they're by more the most.
They're the frustrating ones.
Yeah. They're the ones. This year is just a write-off for the Bronx. But that year like Parramatta had, where they had real glimpses of brilliance, you're like, oh, geez, and we've spoke about it so many times about windows and premiership windows and those opportunities to win a premiership. Like, I think this was a chance with everything going on for Parramatta to possibly have gone all the way, and it's kind of. And Robb spoke about a few of those. You know, their game plan doesn't change. They kind of offer up the same thing every week, which was good and great in patches. But yeah, I really think it's a year that could have been for Parramatta.
Yeah, you take two things out of the two semi-finals for Para. One is they led both games by double digits and they lost. And then they scored 24 points and conceded in the 30s in both semi-finals. You're not getting it done on either level. If you're scoring 24 points in semi-final, you should be winning. You really should.
Yep.
And so they're gone. The other team, lads, which is the team that we all sort of didn't really want to admit were gone when they got done by the Bunnies a few weeks ago, and that's the Roosters. And we discussed this fairly extensively, Robb, on the way back from Canberra, just around the mental sort of fatigue side. It's looking like it's pretty much it. And Robinson in the press conference admit that he pulled some wrong reins. There is certainly a team selection for that game that we were all a little bit surprised at. But just the mental aspect for the Roosters, you watch them get down 16-0 against Canberra, and a team like that, you still can't say it's going to be over. And they ultimately got with a couple of that tackle from Nickel Clockstad on Josh Morris from tying it up or potentially going ahead. The Roosters, everyone is saying, who's in the media, which is what I guess you're paid to do, is hype things up. But they're all saying dynasty over for the Chooks. Before we get into the Raiders game, right now, is the dynasty over for the two-time defending champions who are now out of it? Is the dynasty over, or can they come back next year, win it, and extend the mantle as a dynasty? What are your thoughts?
I think
Matty.
That's a class team that just looked both mentally and physically exhausted throughout the year. They had a stack of injuries. They just kept running up week in, week out, winning football games. They looked shot against Canberra. The Raiders played a fantastic game and just couldn't put them away until the end. It took a clanger from arguably one of the top three players in football.
He's the best player in the game, yeah.
For the rest of his career, they're far from over. Well, they've got that core and the coach as well, I think, brings so much. So, no, definitely not.
No. Robb?
No, I agree with Matty there. The only thing that worries me about the Roosters at the moment, and I shouldn't be worried about it because their recruiting and development is what development they do, which is buying players from South, is always been pretty spot on. You know what I mean? They do buy players really well. I know they do develop players as well, but I think I'm a bit weirded out by a couple of things. Not weirded out. I think that they've got a little bit of an aging roster. Obviously, they're going to have to, move some a couple of players on. I know that there's a couple that are retiring, but I think the future's pretty bright with players like Sam Verrills, who will come back next year, and what's his name, Lussick, the young Lussick, another good player. You know, I think there's a little bit of a question mark over me with young Flanagan, who can certainly kick a goal, but has an issue with defence, and every team in the NRL knows it, and target him, and he tends to leak a little bit. I think they pulled the wrong rein this year with Sonny Bill.
Okay.
I think I've got a feeling that they would never say it because they're such a tight group, but I would, if I was there, my nose would be a little bit out of joint if I missed out on a final and been playing all year for someone to swan in and play 5 games. And even though he is Sonny Bill Williams, he's not the same Sonny Bill Williams we saw last time he had a foray into rugby league.
Yeah, which was 7 years ago or 6 years ago.
Yeah, and certainly not the same guy that started with the Bulldogs all those years ago. So, you know, I think that might have been a little bit of a wrong rein for Coach Robinson.
Just on that, as you say that, it's not necessarily what I believe, but it's just expanding on what you're saying. Do you think the players who had won 2 comps in a row are kind of going, well, why do we need him? I mean,
well, that's what I would have been thinking, and I would have thought, and I know that they had some injuries, so it kind of worked out that not too many players missed out. But I think they looked a better team the week before at Penrith than they did this week just gone. They're very tired though. You know, they're very tired and they play a pretty high energy kind of game. But I think whatever they've got Tedesco and Keary in that team, and they've got those good forwards in the middle, like I know that Takiao got injured the other night and will probably be out for probably at least the first quarter or third of next season if it is an ACL. Was it an ACL, by the way? Did we find out?
Sorry? Takiao.
Oh,
I haven't seen anything say ACL. I thought it was just it was in his knee, but it wasn't. I don't think it was a ACL.
Not an ACL?
I don't think so.
Okay, because on TV they were saying it was an ACL. But anyway, no, I don't think it's over for him, mate. I think they've still got a window for next year. So yeah, I think a bit of sensationalism from our journalists. They love it.
My whole thing is, you know, people talk about, this team's definitely in the top 8 next year, and I'm like, well, okay, hold the phone for a second. Who's missing out from the top 8 to make that spot open? And that's the same thing with the premiership window. You know, I can't say that the Roosters are going to be out of the mix of the top 4 teams next year. That's just insane. So
sure,
no dramas there. Now, boys, we have a timer ticking down on my Zoom at the moment, saying that I've got 8 minutes before this meeting ends. Now, we did potter around for a long time earlier, Rob and I. So what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to take a break. I'm going to restart the Zoom meeting, and we'll get into a bit of Origin talk, because I know these boys cannot wait to sink their teeth into some New South Wales and Queensland deliciousness. We're back after the break here on Not The Footy Show.
Not The Footy Show.
Yeah, you've got to announce that it's daylight saving time when you send requests to
I'd completely forgotten, I'll be honest.
So had I. I totally thought, well, yeah, this will be sweet.
Didn't even register on my radar that you were remotely different now. So, all right, well, let's get going, boys. I'll try and keep this to half hour.
Oh, I bet you can't, but that'd be good.
It'd be fantastic. All right. Okay, we're back. It's episode 223 of Not The Footy Show. Warrick Nicolson, Roberto Cocksmith, and Matthew Duncan, the LA Lakers super fan. Once again, how did you avoid the authorities at Staples Center the other night, mate?
I'm very sneaky. I'm very sneaky. Yeah, I can get around.
Speaking of avoiding things, how are you going to avoid a 3-0 whitewash in the Origin in a couple of weeks' time?
Yeah, look, that's going to be pretty tricky. Queensland down on troops, but we'll just have to channel the spirit of 1995. That keeps getting thrown around. Remember 1995? We keep saying up here in Queensland.
When the Crushers came in, that's why I remember 95. Such a monumental day in Queensland Rugby League. Fantastic, mate. You've got some issues picking a team coming up.
Can we have Keary back?
Well, doesn't he want to play for Queensland? Isn't that the chat?
Yeah, this kind of works, you know.
Now, according to the grapevine, Mr. Roberto Cocksmith, he may actually be available to play for Queensland. We got asked a question from a listener, Rick Allsop. He's basically asked us, will Jack Whiten get the New South Wales number 6 jersey over Luke Keary? And Cocksmith, mail. You have some mail. Deliver it.
Yeah, look, I think he will be the 6. The only thing that sways me to believe he may not be the 6 is our lack of depth in the centres at the moment, which may push him back to the centre where he played last year. But yeah, I did hear a whisper that the intention is possibly to play Whiten at 6 and Keary on the bench.
So that means that you would have potentially King Gutho at left centre, which if you're going to pick him in the centres, you pick him on the left side because that's where he sets up all his tries for Parramatta, and then Zach Lomax at right centre if that's what you do. My investment.
Sorry, Woz.
Yeah,
where are the centres? Because we've got no centres either.
Well, you guys are faced with the Himmel Hunt Brenko Lee combination coming up.
Yeah. Where are the centres in rugby league gone?
They got old
by back rowers, aren't they?
Yeah.
Back rowers.
They got old, I think.
They get all the ball now. So why do you need centres that are actually any good?
No, good point. Continue.
I was having this chat with Rob before you came on, Matty, and I just think you get the same kind of impact same kind of game from Jack Whiten if he's in the left centre spot as he is playing left 5'8" sort of thing in terms of the side of the field. Whereas Keary, he'll be all over the field and he'll be terrorising Queensland from start to finish. I can't pick Jack Whiten at 6 ahead of Luke Keary. I just cannot do it. I think New South Wales were very lucky that they had James Maloney ultimately to come into the team last year to replace the mistake that was Cody Walker in game 1. Keary unavailable because of his concussions. I think it's a no-brainer and you pick Keary because I think it just makes your team ultimately that much more dangerous and it makes other players that much more dangerous. Jack Whiten, as good as he's been going and as great as he's been for the last sort of 18 months to 2 years, he makes Jack Whiten very, very good. Keary makes the other players even better. And as a New South Wales fan, and if I could say anything to Chief confidant, advisor, selector, Captain Snooze, or sleep doctor, whatever I call him, Greg Alexander, it's that Jack Whiten's pretty good, but he's also pretty good at centre. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. It worked a treat last year, replacing Latrell Mitchell, who is the best centre in the game, even though he played fullback all year. I just think it's a no-brainer. You go Keary at 6. What would you do, Matty? I mean, you obviously have an investment in. I'd love to see this guy play 6 because it gives us a chance. What's your thoughts?
Mitchell Moses at 6, mate.
Play him in the front row.
Yeah, no. As a Queensland, as a impartial rugby league fan, I couldn't believe it's even a conversation. Keary's the best 6 going around. I think he's got to be the 6.
It's funny because Joey Johns, who we all know could play a little bit, he's going on about this theory that he thinks that Keary's more of a halfback than a 5'8". I don't understand. And look, Joey's up here and we're not even in the picture, but I don't understand this obsession with making the 7 has to be the conductor, has to be the only, guy touching the ball all the time. Because Keary has proven in the last 2 years that he can do that at 6 and be the bigger playmaker than the 7. As great as Cooper Cronk was, those last 2 years, Keary's the playmaker along with Tedesco. It wasn't Cooper Cronk. I just think you as well as Cleary has developed this year, and he has, and he was much more of a complementary piece last year for the Blues. I just don't see why you wouldn't want another dynamic ball player in your back line.
I think where Joey gets that from, mate, is that, when you do look at most of the 6 and 7 and 6 combinations, the 7 has been the creative ball player and the 6 has been the runner, almost like a quasi centre that plays next to the, and we obviously play very different these days with left and right sides. So It's not often that the half and 5/8 get together. So I think more these days, it's okay to have a creative player on each side. But I actually agree with. I think Cleary is more of a 6, and Keary is more of a 7. If you're putting them into those categories, but they could obviously play alongside each other as long as they complement each other. I don't think they've ever played together, so we don't know.
Yeah.
But if you look at Cleary and Jerome Luai, Jerome Luai is a pretty creative little player, and along the same lines as Keary. So, I think I do agree with Joey fundamentally there. But look, I think Keary's one of the most dangerous and exciting players. You saw the little comeback that the Roosters had the other night when they fought back towards the end of the game, and I'm fairly sure that you might have not been sitting in your seat all that comfortably, given that the way they were coming at the Raiders. Until they got out to that bit more than 8-point buffer, it was a little bit scary. And they've got that. They've got the ability to do that. And Keary, mostly on the back of what Keary does, those raids down short sides and stuff like that. So I agree. I think he's one of the most dangerous players in the world.
What really scared me on the other night, and I knew it was coming because it's the Roosters, they've got pedigree. But for all the passes that didn't stick, it didn't stop them going back to those players. And so many teams would go, it didn't work a couple of times. We'll tighten it up and we'll just play through the middle. The Roosters actually played some pretty entertaining and dangerous football the other night. It took some special efforts from the Raiders to stop them. And I just go, you've got the Tedesco-Keary combination if you play them together. I don't know why you wouldn't want to have that sweeping around both sides of the ruck. Quickly to the, I lost my pen. Quickly to the actual, I think it's the 15 players or 13 players that have been picked for the Blues. I'm just going to go through them for you guys. Nathan Brown, Campbell Gillard, Boyd Cordner, Angus Crichton, Tyson Frizzell, Clinton Gutherson, Payne Haas, Luke Keary, Zach Lomax, Cam McInnes, Junior Paulo, Daniel Sofidi, Tedesco, Jake Trebojevic, and Daniel Tupu. Freddie's definitely... he's made some decisions, and ultimately that's cost Wade Graham, Tarek Sims, David Clemmer, Paul Vaughan their spots. They were incumbents and they're gone. Maloney is in France, so there's going to be some changes for this week, this season. That there's 27 players to be picked, which doesn't mean that anybody is locked in. So this Gutherson talk is going to be a centre. No guarantees yet. I just think that everyone's got to just relax for a second and realise that over a 3-game series that's played over, 14 days, we're going to get some changes game to game. And the issue I guess bring up in regards to you, Matty, is that Phil on 17 might be a tough enough, let alone 27.
Oh, absolutely. It's just going to be tough. I'm not even joking. I just went checking where my boots were just in case. It was not ruling myself out here. Dale Shearer style. Never officially announced his retirement, so
always ready.
Available.
Always available.
So it's going to be an interesting team. So,
well, your shortlist, and I noticed that there's been no players added from the weekend's 2 losing teams, which may just be a QRL staffing issue, or it could be, I don't know. None of the players from the Eels or the Roosters are there, but you would have thought that Lindsay Collins would be in that squad. But the squad you've got named,
and both hookers as well from me.
Yeah, Marnie and friend. Yeah. The squad so far, according to their website, is Arrow, Brimson, Fodawaker, Phil Sammy, Holmes, Hess, Coates, Carrigan, Lee, Himmel Hunt, Ponga, who's now out, Ben Hunt, Josh Kerr, Harry Grant, and Daly Cherry Evans. The good news for you is that Cherry Evans is going to be there. So he'll be a halfback, yeah?
He'll be halfback.
You imagine that the hooker thing will probably be a rotation between Grant and Hunt. Do you think that's what's going to be?
I think it comes down to now what happens with Munster. There's some talk that Munster, if he goes for surgery, be unavailable. I honestly think my preference would be for Grant, Friend, but I think they'll go Friend, Hunt. If Munster is available. If not, I think they'll play Hunt 5/8. So.
Okay. Rob, what would you do if you were Queensland?
try and move heaven and earth and get Cameron Smith to play.
But yeah,
I
ironically
do.
enough, their deepest position probably going into this series.
Yeah,
I know. But you just to have Smith on the field, I think lifts them, another level. You know, he can lead. He's the best leader in the comp, best leader in the world. So, yeah, I wonder if they win, lose, whatever happens this week or next week. I wonder if he can be talked into one more last hurrah. I mean, he's up there. He's in Queensland. He'll be near the bubble. Won't be having to travel from Melbourne. You know. So, but anyway, given the players they've chosen, I think Harry Grant would be my choice at hooker, and Ben Hunt either on the bench or, you know, depending on what Cameron Munster's up to.
Yeah.
Maybe play him at 6. You know.
Yeah, it's just slim pickings for Queensland, especially in the 3-quarter line.
It's unfortunate, isn't it? Really. I mean,
Ponga means Primson's going to be fullback, or Val Holmes. Who would you pick, Matty? Just quickly, Val Holmes or Primson?
Well, Val Holmes will be there for game 1, will he? I think he's
suspended. Yes, that's correct.
So Brimson's a moral to be the fullback, I'd say. So there's literally no other option unless we bring Darius for one more run. But it's got to be Brimson because there's literally no other option for game 1.
And I know you probably haven't given it a strong look, but what is the 3-quarter line going to look like? Who's locked in to be in that 3-quarter line if Holmes isn't there, obviously, in game 1?
Our guy will be there somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then that's put names in the hat and pull out 3 other players to play there with him. Like we're going to have Edric Lee.
Xavier Coates.
Well, Coates isn't ready.
No, I don't. He hasn't been train on teams anyway. I don't think.
No, he's in that squad. He's in that.
Yeah,
he made it.
He was going to be not available. So let's just go all in Lees. Let's just go Brinker and Edric. Just leave it right.
The cousins.
Bring Phil Lee out of retirement.
Yeah, Brett Lee's available. Shane Lee's available. Wasn't there like a Confederate general? Robert E. Lee, get him out there.
The General Lee, yeah. Yep.
Oh.
But in all reality, who are they going to pick in the centres? I mean, honestly, Gagai.
Branko and Gagai. Or Gagai will play wing. They'll play him on the wing. They won't play him in the centres.
Okay. Branko and who was the other one you said before?
Him or Hunt, who played the wing the whole year.
They might play Hunt on the wing and Gagai in the centres.
Phil Sammy.
He's a specialist winger.
It's a massive concern if you.
Ronaldo.
Oh, it is.
Be on the
Who
wing,
was that?
maybe? Ronaldo.
Yeah.
Talo. Well, he didn't make the squad, and they've been knocked out. Or maybe he has. Maybe just the website, the QR website's just not updated.
Yeah,
that could be it.
Maybe Benny's playing ducks and drakes as well, mate. We know he likes to keep, the mind games going, and this will be.
Well, you'd think the one player that I reckon is almost immoral to make the squad now would be Jaden Sewer. If Benny's taken over, which he has, I think he'll.
Is Corey Allen a chance?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess
I
he
like
knows
Corey
him.
Allen
He knows him.
He can play anywhere in the back line other than 6 or 7.
I reckon with Bennett and the coach, I think we'll see Corey Allen in the 17.
There's definitely some question marks for Queensland to just fill a team, and New South Wales. I guess my viewpoint is just don't stuff it up, Freddie. You stuffed it up for game 1 last year by listening to your old sleep doctor. Don't do it again. We will get to our tips for the prelims.
Words.
Sorry, mate.
Stern words from Wazza. Don't stuff it up, Freddie. Yep. 1-2 in a row, but don't stuff it up.
He almost didn't last year.
But it's not Kevy anymore. That's our one thing. We've got the Messiah back. You're not playing against Kevy Walters now. It's the real deal now.
We actually brought this up the other week, Matty, and the question was a couple of things about Kevy Walters. Can he say the words New South Wales anymore now? Is he allowed? Is he officially allowed to say New South Wales?
Good point, yeah.
And following that, if he stays around the coach whisperer, is he allowed to say any of the team names of the 15 other clubs?
No, they're all in the bin. He can't say any of those anymore.
None of them.
Heavy.
Do you reckon if he's playing the Gold Coast, you call them the Giants or the Seagulls or the Chargers, just as a way of getting around it?
surely he calls him what every other journalist calls him, little brother.
Little brother, who finished well above Big Brother.
Do you, Matty? Do you think Kevy's going to be the saviour of the Broncos, mate?
No. I think we probably could go backwards, which is a big effort for a team that run last. But anyway, we'll see.
How long will he last?
The boys love him, mate.
How long will he last, mate? When will we see the back of Kevy at the Broncos?
Oh, I think he'll get 2 years, and that'll be it. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
There's a chance he gets 12 months.
I agree.
It really is.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. Yeah, I don't know. It's not good. The only thing good out of it that he's not coaching Queensland.
Says a lot, doesn't it?
I reckon Bellyache will coach that team. Bellyache will be at Brisbane Broncos.
Yeah,
at some stage he will be. Trust me.
Yeah.
Well, he openly said, he goes, I don't want to coach, be the head coach anymore, but I'm well and truly open to the idea as being a coaching director where I do like half the work and get.
He won't be a coach, but he'll have a decent puppet that will be that will do and say everything that Bellamy wants him to say, and he'll be there in the background, whether it be someone that's played under his system, like a Riles or someone along that's been under him previously. I'd say will be that'll be who it will be. So,
would it be a puppet called Cam?
I thought that, but yeah, that would be interesting, but I couldn't. Yeah, I've considered that. But yeah, interesting times anyway.
I just don't see Cam going to Brisbane unless he's going to play. Because Cam likes a bit of recognition. So if he's going to Brisbane, he's going there to play and turn everything around. I don't think he's going there to be a coach. Not straight away.
Well, has he officially said he's going to retire this year yet?
There was a report on Friday that never got substantiated. Yeah.
No. Okay. I guess we'll find out in a couple of weeks, mate.
We will. He is a chance for the Players' Champion, however, which is the player-voted Dally M, effectively. And they announced their shortlist the other day. And, boys, I'm going to read out the criteria basically is that the club nominates for 3 players from their club as their best player for the year. And then there's votes that have been done throughout the year. So it must have to take into consideration opposition's voting. And then there's a player that is picked as like a fill the gap kind of idea if someone who's had a great season doesn't make it on that top 3 list. I'm going to name you the players that missed out on making this 64-man shortlist. And you basically tell me whether you think that this system just obviously is broken because James Fisher-Harris didn't make the Panthers' Final 4. Mitchell Pearce didn't make Newcastle's Final 4. Jerome Luai didn't make Penrith's Final 4. Dylan Brown didn't make Parramatta's Final 4. Adam Reynolds didn't make South Sydney's Final 4. But the number one player that I don't know how this system missed this guy. Cody Walker is not on the Final 4 for the Rabbitohs and not in the 64 best players apparently from 2020. How does this happen, lads?
No, I don't know. What just got to bin it. It's ridiculous. That's just absurd.
So apparently Tom Burgess, Dane Gagai, Campbell Graham and Jaden Stewart had better years than Adam Reynolds and Cody Walker.
That's calling. I don't know what contacts you've still got, but call someone. Get rid of that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's BS, mate. I think Adam Reynolds, Adam Reynolds played a little bit like he wanted to be in a dinner suit there for a while, but his kicking game kept him in games and then Cody Walker with his attacking brilliance won games for them. So, yeah, wrong.
Yeah. It sort of just makes a bit of a mockery is a hard word, but yeah, it sort of takes the shine off it a little bit when you look at that. I mean, there's some players that obviously should be there, but yeah, it's a strange way that the system works. At the moment, if you had to give me a top 3 for the season, lads, who would have you gone with? The best player in 2020?
You first, Matty.
Tavita Pangai Jr.
Darius Boyd and and what's his name? The MILF. 3 of the best.
Or MILF. Oh, well, who would you go, Was? Who would be your 3?
Cam Smith's up there. Nathan Cleary. And the third one's tough. I still reckon Teddy had a pretty fantastic season.
Tedesco would have been my number one.
I can't put Pappenhausen ahead of Cam. Harry Grant tapered off there across the course of the year. I'm just having to scroll through who they chose. I don't think there's another player that absolutely stands out from the mix. Yeah, I think it's those three. It's Teddy, Cam Smith, and Nathan Cleary.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I can't find any three better than those three.
Some people will push the old Gutho Barrow, but as I said, I think their second half of the year was pretty ordinary.
They're just toothless Parramatta fans, mate. Who cares? Let's be honest.
Harsh words from the Supercoach. I like it.
Not the Footy Show.
Sonny, a pretty tough way to go out. That looked like a really brutal game.
Yes, very tough. Obviously, we didn't want the season to come to an end tonight. But like I said to a couple of the young fellas, that's just the way stories go sometimes. That's the way stories, fairy tales finish a chapter. So it gives them that hunger for next year, So I'm a big believer in keeping the glass half full. And I get to go home to my beautiful wife and 4 young kids tonight. So I'm looking forward to that. But it's been a pleasure coming back and playing with the lads again.
Time to get prelim finals tips, lads. We've waited till right at the end of the show to get people what we think is going to happen on the weekend. Friday night, it's Canberra heading to Suncorp Stadium to take on Melbourne, and there'll be about 3 Canberra fans there. So big advantage for Melbourne. What are we thinking? Assuming Cam Munster plays, what's your tip?
Assuming Cam Munster plays, I say Melbourne win. And I say Melbourne win by, I don't know, I think probably by 10 points. I just think that the grind of Melbourne and their experience and probably the longing to give Smith the fairy tale ending might be enough to get them through. I don't think. Look, the Raiders aren't going to roll over and die though. They don't anymore. They did for a couple of years there, but they just don't do that anymore. They've really strengthened up. But that's what I reckon, mate. I reckon Melbourne with Munster. Now, without Munster, I think it's a different story. I'll go the Raiders.
Okay.
Without Munster, and probably by 4 or 6. So I think there's 14 to 16 points in having Munster there, to be honest with you.
Matty?
Can't split them all. I really can't. Whoever wins it, I said at the start of the podcast, will go on and win the whole thing. This is the strongest side. I don't know who wins it. It'll either go to golden point or it'll be a field goal just before full time. I'm not giving a prediction, except that'll be no more than 1 point splitting the sides when the siren goes.
Okay, so basically Matty's just said 2 teams will take the field on Friday night, and that's your prediction. Well done. I like it.
And then
what about...
have a bet, take the game to go golden points, be about $21. That's
there
better value team. So
get a tenner on it. What about you, Woz? What's going to happen, mate? And
the issue I've got,
head,
if Cam Munster plays, he's not going to be 100%. There's no.
So you want?
Well, I'm just saying. I don't think he's going to be a 14-point difference. I understand where you're coming from, Rob, but if his knee's not 100%, he's not going to have that same impact because his danger is when he runs the ball. So
I'm not saying he's going to score 14 points. I just think they're a 14-point better team with him in the team.
I mean, obviously, the big factor for me is what happens in regards to how Canberra want to play it. If they play through the middle and they want to go the grind, which Ricky does against good sides, he just has this obsession with sort of matching it blow for blow. I think that plays into Melbourne's hands because it brings Cameron Smith into complete dominance over the ball when he's got the ball and when he doesn't have it in defence. And he is the difference maker in this game. So the Cam Munster thing isn't as big a deal for me. It's more if Canberra decide to just try and bash up the middle against what is a Melbourne pack that is just delicious. I mean, their bench, it'll either be a Sofa Solomona, Big Tino, Finucane potentially coming back, Welch, like Bromwich, the 2 back rowers. Like that they're built to play through the middle. And if Canberra decide that's what they want to do, where Canberra are going to fall apart or fall down, is the B team for Canberra in the middle is just, it's a big step down. Whereas I don't think that's the same case for Melbourne. And it's a case of, and my hot mate actually said it to me the other day, he goes, you know, the period of time when Papali's off the field, that's huge, because if Canberra don't have a lead or aren't really in the game when Papa's on the field, the moment he goes off and gets his 20-minute break, the game could just be broken wide open by Melbourne. Right now I'm going Melbourne. Cam Smith, just too good. Canberra decided to play some football and try and expose what I think is really ordinary edge defence for Melbourne. I'd be all after Brenko Lee and Vunivalu on the right and Addo Carr and Justin Olam on the left. I would just be running the ball at them all night, kicking to them, turning them around, just not giving them a break, because they make bad reads in defence. They just do. Having said that, so does Jordan Rapana and Nick Kotrick on the right and Jared Croker and Steve Bamamai on the left. I mean, if I'm doing the coaching, they're the places that I'm targeting, because I think both teams are pretty good in the middle. I think Melbourne are slightly better. So at the moment, I'm going Melbourne by 2.
Do you think the Raiders are a better team in 2020 than they were in 2019?
Can you ask me in a couple of weeks, potentially? We've played some more. What's the word? Actually, let me go back. The last time we played Melbourne, okay, going into that match is the first time for nearly 30 years or 25 years that I've sat there and gone, my team, the Raiders, is going to beat a team that everyone considers better than them. I felt very confident about that. We went out and played a performance down in Melbourne. It's the first game after COVID, I think it was. And we just played superbly. We haven't played to that level since. As much as we've had some games where we've put moments on, even the other night, 16-0 really should have been 22 or 24, given the ball we had. And even the second half, when it was 16-6, it took us a long time to get that next try. And we had a lot of possession. My concern remains with Ricky. I don't think we are as attacking as I'd like us to be in the attacking 20. Starling's definitely added something to us. So part of me says yes, simply because I think we've learnt a lot from the way last year and what it took to get to the GF. But I know Matt said it before, and Rob, you definitely said it, but this competition, you just got to put a couple of good weeks together at the pointy end. And the comp's there to be taken. I mean, Matt, you know that the NBA season obviously was a little bit different this year. And in the end, the Lakers, who, a month ago weren't even going to play in the tournament anymore. They decided they weren't playing anymore. And then they came around and they've won a title. So, look, I think we are possibly better. I would prefer to have Josh Hodgson there, obviously, given the quality that he can be. But, yeah, I think the game comes down to what Ricky decides to do on Friday night.
I as an impartial observer looking from last year to this year, there just seems to be a self-belief in those Raiders. There was a confidence last year, but this year it's more of a self-belief. We got to the grand final this year where we are good enough to be here. I like what I see in them this year, Canberra. I'm changing my Canberra by.
I got him.
Canberra.
And the thing is, the team that was better than them last year is gone, and they're the ones that knocked them out.
Yeah.
The other semi-final or the other preliminary final, lads. South Sydney riding a crest of a wave. They certainly have momentum on their side, even if their performances in the first parts of matches haven't been wonderful the last month. They get the Penrith Panthers. We did touch on this game a little bit more in depth earlier, but right now, lads, I need a tip: Penrith or South?
Okay, I'm going to pick Penrith, but it'll depend on whether Penrith are strong enough to not fall into the trap of playing at South's pace. Souths are especially good when they play quick, when they get rolls on, when they start to, fatigue a team in the middle. If Penrith can slow the game down to their tempo, Penrith will win. If they fall into the trap of trying to go, toe-to-toe with them. And I'm not talking about toe-to-toe and trying to bash them. I'm just trying to up-tempo their game to South. Yep. They'll lose. South in the last couple of weeks have been very good at lifting the tempo and holding it there, and teams just can't go with them. once they start to get a roll on, they start to go to those little edges, and Cody Walker starts to do his magic there. And they're a scary team. They don't halfway through this year, I wouldn't have said that. I didn't think that they were there, but in the last 4 or 5 weeks, they're a team that can out-attack any team, and they'll score. They beat the Roosters by 60 to 8. When they can do that to the Roosters, they can do that to any team if a team falls into that trap. So, but I still say Penrith by 8.
Matt?
South were only at a couple of different times. They remind me of the 2006 Bennett coached Broncos. Just nothing all year, just win some, lose some, never look real impressive. Come the pointy end of the season, on the back of some miraculous form by Justin Hodges, went all the premiership. They just kind of had that same feel about them as that team, South. I want Penrith to win, and I kind of love Canberra to win, so we see that Canberra versus Penrith for that 1990s rugby league fan in me to see that kind of romantical type of 30-year anniversary game. But I just think, I just got a feeling South are the team with, which seems funny saying a team with momentum against a team that's won 1,000 in a row. Feel South are a team with a lot of momentum, and momentum in finals football is everything.
So South for you?
South by 6.
I'm going Penrith, and it's a respect level as much as anything. I've seen a couple of performances from them this year where they were just spectacular. They ripped Canberra apart, I think at about round 12 or 13, and really ripped them apart. And they played Manly the next week, and they did exactly the same thing. Now, Manly obviously ended up having a pretty ordinary season, all things considered. But those 2 performances back-to-back, they can bottle that, South won't get near them. But my concern with Penrith is always that one of the great things about the Roosters is that they rarely waste tackles in attack. They'll always, if they see an opportunity, they'll go for it. Penrith loves setting up. The inside ball from Nathan Cleary is the number 1 play on the Penrith dossier, so to speak. As Rob said, South can turn it on when they get some possession, and they will turn it on big time. So Penrith cannot waste opportunities like they have in some games this year. They've ultimately been good enough to win, but that's against lesser opposition. I'm going Penrith by 1. I think we're getting the fairy tale Nathan Cleary field goal in this one. But the biggest threat to Penrith is Damien Cook and what he does around the ruck, because he is playing superb right now. He is the Damien Cook that we all know exists and is the best, in my view, 9. I think he is better than Cam Smith, even though Cam Smith has been awesome for obviously a longer period and the rest of it. But this, where he is right now, I think Cam Smith's the best number 9 in the comp. And he's the one that I'm worried about if I'm Penrith. I'm going Penrith 19-18. And I think it'll be Penrith-Melbourne, which is a bit boring. But that's the matchup that I think ends up. So Penrith from me.
Interesting.
Good work.
Well, that's the podcast, lads. We're about to get kicked off Zoom again. Somehow that Origin talk, it always just it makes everything just go ridiculously long. Cocksmith, I'm not talking about Origin again. We got Origin in like 3 weeks' time. It's not happening until there is a game to talk about coming up like in 2 days' time. We're not talking about Origin again because it just kills the length of the podcast, doesn't it?
Well, you brought it up, mate. You brought it up. I was happy not to talk about it. You wanted to talk about it.
Very nice. Ladies and gentlemen, that's been Matty Duncan, Roberto Cocksmith. I've been Warrick Nicolson. You can get us at facebook.com/NRL podcast, at Mr. Peninsula for Matty, at Rob Cox on everywhere. And I'm at NRL Tweet. We will speak to you next time. Good to have some feedback on the show. If you liked it, we did talk about a sponsor last week. What we found out, Roberto, is that I've noticed you shaved this morning, but I don't know if you've shaved where this place wants you to shave.
Oh, mate, if they're paying, I will.
We'll get in touch with them this week. I don't know if you heard, Matty, but we've been approached with a sponsorship. And let's just say our beards aren't the things that are in danger.
Oh, dear.
So we'll speak to you next time on Not The Footy Show, everyone.
Going to do the
prelim finals. Sorry?
Pepsi?
You can do a Pepsi. Go for it, mate.
Pepsi.
See you later, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers, lads.
Bye-bye.
Love your work.
Not the Footy Show.
It's people's escape, it's people's relaxation, and we need to do everything in order to continue that great tradition of
Not the Footy Show.
I've got a 5-year deal here.
Pepsi.